evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 11th, 2012 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda, brief presentation by Water Quality Management Committee.
That would be me.
All right.
Steve Rafferty.
Steve, please.
Oh.
I gave a presentation the other day, and I not only did not introduce myself, I walked away from the microphone, but please.
Try not to get happy feet.
Introduce yourself and speak into the microphone.
I'm Stephen Rafferty, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Water Quality Management Committee. And I'm here before you tonight just to give you a little overview of where we are, let you know that our committee knows that your committee's there and that we're going to have to work together as we move forward. And then we're on a little bit later for a request for determination of applicability for a specific project. Just wanted to bring you up to date. Obviously, our committee's been meeting every couple of weeks. We broke into subcommittees over various elements of approaches to reducing the nitrogen loading on the estuaries, specifically the South Coastal. We've had a subcommittee looking at something called permeable reactive barriers, which is different from sewers but goes in the ground. Subcommittee looking at aquaculture and how to increase the use of that, or the areas that it's at, and how to get credit for that from the state. There's a group that's been looking at eco-toilets and how to test some eco-toilets to determine how effective they are at reducing nitrogen loading to the ground. Another group has been working on inlet widening, and I think that through the collaborative, there's an ENF that's been assembled and is in the process of going forward for Bourne's Pond. I don't know if that's made in front of you yet, because that's just some paperwork over the last couple of weeks. And then we've been looking more specifically at the Little Pond area as well, as sort of the first area to really focus on and how to approach that. So we haven't come before you until now because we've had a lot of what are we doing and how are we going to go about it conversation. But we are now very much into the process of defining what we want various consultants or entities to do in terms of developing concrete plans that we can go before the state, come before the Conservation Commission, go against the harbor master, go to the harbor master folks and others to do more detailed studies over the next couple of years called demonstration projects. The town, under Article 17, a year ago appropriated to us, I should know the exact number, but it's in the range of a couple $1 million. So we take it very seriously to come together with a good plan, a plan that's using the money wisely. And so that's where we're at. And so you'll see over time that we're going to start getting consultants, and the consultants are going to want to talk with you, meet with you, make sure they understand when we're assessing alternatives, how much any alternative requires Conservation Commission approvals, what happens in those zones, the various elements of that. But probably no physical work until about a year from now, beyond what I'm going to come to you, I guess, later in this agenda.
Okay, just beware, Steve, that any work within wetlands jurisdiction, you should tell Jen about, and it should be reviewed because it may require permitting.
Absolutely. I think the majority, if not everybody on our committee, is very aware of that. So
okay.
We are quite sensitive to the fact that you guys are protecting a whole aspect of the estuary system, much like we're trying to improve it. So hopefully we can work together.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, wait a second. There may be some questions. Are there any questions? Court? Court.
Would you repeat the list of specific things that you opened your conversation?
Yeah, actually at town meeting, several items were listed. I hit upon the highlights, but there's a subcommittee that's looking at what they refer to as eco-toilets, alternative toilet systems that would reduce the amount of nitrogen coming out of your on-site system. There's another small subcommittee that's looking at on-site denitrifying systems and what they're like and everything. I'm chair of a subcommittee that's looking at aquaculture and how to proceed forward with increasing the amount of aquaculture. There is a small subcommittee that's looked at inlet widening specifically for Bourne Pond and they're just at the front edge of that permitting process, and we think that's a 5-year process. A lot of studies of what happens if you widen the inlet. There's a thing called permeable reactive barriers, which I don't know if you know what that is.
We've had that before.
Okay.
We know what they are.
Okay, good. Well, some people don't, so I always want to check. So there's a subcommittee that's been looking at how do we go forward evaluating where you might put those in and what it might cost, and trying to identify a location to do a demonstration project. But I would say for the next 6 months to 12 months, we're going to be doing more planning and comparative evaluations than, say, on the permeable reactive barrier. The plan is to look at all the southern estuaries, break them into sort of zones, and try to determine how deep the barrier would have to be and how many homes it would be collecting and treating various ways. And then out of that, pick 3 or 4 sites that we think have potential for doing a demonstration project, come back before you, if we're in the Conservation Commission zones or whatever. Go build 1,000 or 1,500 feet of this and measure what happens across the barrier to get state buy-in if it works or doesn't work.
Okay. You're aware of the fact that there are 2 demonstration projects?
Very, very much aware.
Okay.
Very, very much aware. And I also know the limitations of the projects that are there and what the lack of information is on them and how they're working.
Okay.
Our subcommittee has sort of taken the approach that we don't need to determine if reactive barriers work. What we need to do is find the best location to find out how good they work. You know, like how good do they work and what other things are they doing beyond what we hope they're doing that we need to be aware of. So,
You mean what? You wouldn't want to get involved in something that might prove to be worse than before you started?
well, I mean, if you go to the Wacoit location, you can, I mean, there's an issue about how much salt water gets on the other side of the barrier and what the salt water, when it gets on the other side of the barrier, may or may not be doing to the chemistry. So it's probably not the ideal barrier to be looking at, but there's a chemistry going on through that barrier right now that is causing some chemical changes to the natural iron in the groundwater, that you can sort of see some iron coloration on the beach in front of it. But there's a number of hypotheses about what that's being caused by and if there's something different. So that's sort of where we're trying to get to over time to be able to measure that.
Good, thanks.
Did I answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may as well stay here for your RDA. I mean, you can stay for the whole meeting if you like. I don't mean to restrict you just to your project. Okay, request to continue under determination of applicability. Heinz Penzance Point Nominee Trust, 160 Penzance Point, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to relocate and replace 2 existing float pilings, replace 2 other existing float pilings, and modify the float to accept new piling locations.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested continuance until April 25th, and I have a meeting with him to discuss the project on Friday. So we'll keep you updated.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to April 25th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request to continue under, amend the existing order of conditions. P&B Realty Trust, 32 Cape Cod Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts, request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP number 253763, to add a 16 by 20-foot deck off the back porch, install 80 square feet of mitigation shrubs and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance until May 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay. Motion on the table is continuance to May 9th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Minutes, vote. March 21st. I don't see anyone jumping up, so perhaps we'll wait until next week on that.
Probably a good idea, Madam Chairman.
March 28th, I suppose if we haven't read the 21st, we haven't read the 28th.
The 28th just came into your packets on Friday.
Okay, we'll do those next week.
Yep.
Request for determination of applicability. Michael Grimes, 87 Coonamessett Circle and 0 Coonamessett Circle, map 1003018-171, Hatchville, for permission to vista prune. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the bylaw, -3 under the state, with the reasons considered boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Negative determination means that people can go ahead with the project as discussed with staff. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Geraldine Klein Robinar, 217 Sipawissa Road and Langley Road, map 3710-015-073A, Falmouth, for permission to vista prune.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has requested a continuance until April 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to April 25th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. John Clarkin, 11 Rex Lane, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to remove old perforated pipe and stone and install a new Title V sewage disposal system leach field.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the bylaw and a -3 under the state if the resource area boundary is not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the board?
I just had one question. Is the area going to just be reseeded?
I believe so, yes.
And no irrigation?
Okay, any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Town of Falmouth, Selectmen, care of Stephen Rafferty, Water Quality Management Committee, Shellfish Subcommittee, Little Pond and Green Pond, East Falmouth, for permission to, go to the next page, install 3 floating cages approximately 2 feet by 4 feet anchored in Little, map 46, and Green Pond, map 45, to measure the viability of oyster survival. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we reviewed the sites and we're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move. Second.
The applicant still does need to obtain a 10A permit from the harbor masters to
Okay.
do such work, but they are aware of that.
Okay, any
Thank you,
questions
Steve.
from the audience?
I just had one quick question.
Yeah.
What shellfish is there?
Oyster. It's oyster, isn't it?
Oysters are already existing there. Okay.
No, they don't exist there, but they're gonna grow in these
Oh,
floating cages.
Well, it said that it was done in land containing shellfish.
Oh, the shellfish that are there are not oysters, they're,
Actually, there's shellfish in Little Pond. Little Pond is contaminated and closed to any shellfishing. And actually, the reason we can do what we want to do in Little Pond is because we're doing it as the town. So the exercise is the first step. It's a viability determination before we come back next year to put a lot of oysters into Little Pond possibly, dependent upon a resource evaluation, standing crop assessment of what truly is in Little Pond, which will follow in the second phase of the project. But before I said we want to be smart with the town's money. So before we go spend a lot of money on oyster seed for a fairly large demonstration project a year from now, the Oyster Collaborative has generously offered to give us some of their seed to put 1 to 3 of these bags into Little Pond to be sure that at the right point for salinity in that pond, that the oysters, what the viability of the oysters are, the percent
but to answer
recovery.
your question,
Yeah.
generally oysters aren't there because oysters like hard substrate to settle on.
So
But
it is-
there are cohogs there.
Yeah, there's a lot of coax at the lower end, yeah.
Yeah.
But just, this is a picture of what floating bags look like, if you will, and we want to put 1 to 3 of those in. So those are 2 by 4 bag. I will provide that to you.
I'll take that, Steve. Thank you.
Courtney?
It's a question of how big they are.
Assuming that the demonstration project is successful and works as we think it might, and now that you put, to use your word, lots of oysters in Little Pond, are these going to be harvested, or what's going to happen to them?
The answer is, for the viability test, I'm trying to use the word viability test versus demonstration.
Right.
This year's viability testing. We sent the letter to Commissioner Marine Fishery, copy is with you. You've got a copy that came out of the Board of Selectmen. We will destroy the oysters at the end of the season, okay, because they cannot be consumed.
It's in water that is closed to shellfish.
No, I
The
understand.
long-term plan, though, is to raise oysters for a portion of one season, and then through the development of a plan, we will have a mechanism in place to either sell them or to relay them someplace.
Yeah,
And they will then have to sit for a whole nother season to be deporized and be suitable for consumption. So it's a 2-year process.
you've answered my question. Thank you.
And I couldn't have done that 3 months ago.
Amazing how much you can learn. So do we have a motion on the table?
Yes.
And a
Okay.
second.
Do you have a question?
No, I just want to make a comment. Anyone watching the Selectmen's meeting on Monday night might have heard a very frustrated shellfish fisherman talk about how nothing is living in Little Pond currently. And I just want to point out that regardless of the merits of his comment or not, and he certainly, I think, mentioned that was his experience, and he's certainly sincere, the project we're talking about here is to grow oysters in cages. So whether oysters can grow on the bottom or in any kind of a natural manner or not is a whole separate issue. The plan here is to really aquaculture, and it's in cages suspended above the bottom, so all of that anoxic sediment on the bottom is not really a problem or relevant to this particular
But in fact,
project. You have to make that distinction.
in fact, it's not true that nothing lives there. There are a lot of shellfish that live in Little Pond. They're not allowed to be harvested because the water quality there is not sufficient.
And they survive on areas of Little Pond. Generally, what we see before us here is most of the shellfish survive better on the fringes of our ponds, not down in the deep water where all that oily, mucky-looking sediment seems to lie. That's a generalization.
Okay, so my understanding from Susan is we haven't taken the vote, so we're going to take the vote, and the recommendation is a -2, which means they can go ahead and do this viability project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You don't have to go, though, you can stay, but you can go if you want. Continue. I have good peripheral vision. Continued request for determination of applicability. Heinz Penzance Point Nominee Trust has been continued till April 25th. And you're working, is that what I heard you say? You're working, okay. Robin Aspel, 5 Sycamore Street, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 40-square-foot porch and 50-square-foot addition to remove the garage to the foundation and construct a 2-story garage, install an invert pipe at the garage foundation and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until April 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Yes.
Yes, when I read this on our agenda, I had to do a double take on a 2-story garage. I was wondering how they would get the automobile up to the 2nd story. I think what we really mean here is a garage with some other additional living space or some space of some sort in the room over the garage at ground floor. That's all.
I'd call that a 2-story garage. I think it's just semantics, Ed. Have we taken the vote yet?
Yep.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? Okay, the vote is for a continuance to April 25th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, request for hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, there is a separate decision under each authority. First, we have Mark and Evelyn Perrault, 57 Madeline Road, East Falmouth, for permission to install in addition native mitigation plantings and the associated excavating and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments or questions until after Barbara's presentation.
Barbara, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Barbara Frappier with Warwick & Associates. The project here before you is an existing single-family home on Madeline Road. It fronts on Eel Pond. The applicants are requesting permission to construct an addition in an area that is right now mostly concrete patio, and they're also going to put on a covered front porch. Under your regulations for redevelopment, this entire property is in an A flood zone. It's also, the majority of the site is within the A buffer to a resource area, which is a non-eroding coastal bank. in a A-zone as well as land under ocean. So the 75-foot A buffer takes up most of the property. All of the work proposed is in the A buffer. As part of the narrative, provided you with the information relative to increased impervious area. Right now, the patio area consists of 251 square feet. That will be removed. The proposed front porch is 69 square feet, and the addition is 340 square feet. So we have a net increase in structure of 158 square feet. Based upon your regulations, in an A-zone, that requires 3-to-1 mitigation. That mitigation is shown here in the green along the top of the coastal bank, which is a dock and a bulkhead, and that mitigation will be just slightly over. We're required to put in 474 square feet of vegetation. We're proposing a minimum of 505. The only other changes that I would suggest is that we would like to opt for a drip edge on the addition as opposed to a dry well, gutter, and downspout. We feel that the soil is suitable for it, unless there is some way to do a gutter system and connect it to their existing drainage. But we feel that the drip edge will be sufficient here. And I think that's about some of the project.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're very welcome.
Jen?
Barbara, the drip edge, is that the darker?
No, I didn't, it's not
You didn't
shown
put the
on
line,
there.
okay, that's
I didn't put it, I didn't draw it on the drawing, but
Okay.
I did put it in the narrative.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, who has this one?
Mike?
Mike, we'll let you go first.
There is an existing shed, and you're showing an area of planting between the shed and an existing fence.
Well, there's a limit of work fence going in there, and we're only going to put one row of small shrubs there. There's not much room between the shed and that bulkhead to get much in, so we're just
No,
running
there's
one
not
row.
much room, but you have an existing fence that runs behind the bulkhead in the shed. Is that to remain?
Well, that's a heck of a good question. I'm going to assume that that fence is going to remain, because no one told me they were taking down any fence.
And I'll defer to somebody else to tell me if you can make the shrubs work.
Well, if they can't work,
Yeah, you're beyond my...
Mark will be all over me.
Well, you're flanked by two people who can answer that question, so
Okay.
so we'll start with Ted.
It's, I mean, it's, the fence is running, what, north-south, so it's getting half a day sun. It's pretty good.
That's why I'm asking, Ted.
But I would say to you also, Mr. Powers, that should these plants not flourish as well as the ones wildly exposed, that is an overage, that would represent the overage. So we're saying we're going to make something grow there, we'll make something grow there.
Okay. Ted, you have anything else?
Would you be willing to say, you take the fence down? I mean, what is the purpose of the fence anyway? I mean,
I don't really know.
So you don't
I wouldn't want to say that they would want to take the fence down. So I will suggest it to them if they don't have any particular affection for the fence and would like to take it down, to have at it. I would give,
I mean, it's a half-day sun, but, the plants we specify in those areas are used to having full,
especially bayberries, so,
Well,
yeah.
any of the list.
Right.
I mean, the plethora of all of them, so, anyway.
I'll work on that. I will,
I mean,
keep
plethora would
it.
probably do better with some shade, but
Yeah, the cleffer does pretty well in shade.
The fence appears to extend, I think it was built when the bulkhead was put in, and it seems to extend onto the neighbor's property. It seems to stop nowhere and go nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's there, so...
I'll ask them about the fence. Maybe
Okay.
they might like to get rid of it.
Well, if the plants don't grow, we'll
Yeah, we get
come
rid of
up
them
with,
or put them
we'll come
somewhere
up with Plan B.
bayberry's not going to like the shade.
Yep.
Anyway.
The clother will be okay back there.
I could swap out, do mostly bayberry with some plethora behind the shed.
I can detail that out
Okay.
for
Yep.
you in any decision. Barb.
Maury,
No questions?
I have no questions. Do you have any questions?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, it's your turn.
I didn't have much concern with the fence because it keeps people from falling in the water. The plantings behind there, they're going to either live or die. But I did have a little confusion with it first. Everybody in this area seems to really love their waterfront property for activities. There's a lot of boats in the driveway. There's also an additional float in the water and a ramp at this, as portrayed, this existing dock and float doesn't show the ramp that is there, and it doesn't show the float that's tied up to the bulkhead. There's also, in the driveway, as I was walking by, a really neat-looking thing, and I called the 1-800 number on it, and it is for personal watercraft, and it is to be attached to a dock. That's how it's designed. It can be either attached to the right, the left, port or starboard, or the head.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if that's a neighbor's, because it's not depicted on where it would go in here. So I don't have a whole lot of problems with the project, but the condition of the site, when somebody asks me to go to the site, I literally have to walk past items that rise my curiosity as to why it's not as presented.
Could I,
Well, she couldn't have presented differently because it's not, she's not going to present that in the
There is a
driveway.
Chapter 91 license for this property. Could I, Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see this too.
Well, this isn't Chapter 91, this is something else. I just wanted to show. Is this what you see?
Now, this is, yes, that's more in line, but there's an additional float
Gotcha.
tied up to the bulkhead. And like I said, this is what is more on site, as opposed to just a float in the existing dock. The ramp,
This float seems to be over here.
no.
I have the same question.
Yeah, there's two floats.
I was there today.
There's two floats. When I was there the other day, the ramp goes down to a float, and then there was another float tied up over on the side. As I drew right here, and then drew right there. And I also drew right here what was in the driveway. And it was just enough different that, it's a very tight.
Can I have that for the record?
Thank you. It's a very congested area there anyways. And if that is the homeowner's and he's not storing it for a neighbor, I'd like to know where that additional personal watercraft flotation device would be.
I will ask that question. I will also remind the applicants that there is a Chapter 91 license that dictates what water-dependent structures they are permitted to have.
Thank you.
And if they exceed what's on the Chapter 91 license, then they need to come back before you to amend the configuration or any expansion to them.
There was one really neat little simple device.
Yes.
They had a board floating at the end, which captured a lot of the flotsam jetsam, so it wasn't running underneath this dock area. There's also a lot of water lines and such to this dock.
You mean
There's
like
piping.
for-
I don't know if it's for jets, bubblers. I just was inquiring, because it was very clear water underneath there, so I got to see quite a bit of tubing, piping, and such underneath the dock. So if they could just satisfy my inquiries on that, I would be appreciated.
I will have responses to you on all of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Ed?
Yeah, I have a few little bits, unfortunately. I say unfortunate because it's not a really big project, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what I saw today. First, there was no posting out at the street to tell me I'd arrived at the property, and I didn't see any staking anywhere on the lot. Those are minor issues.
Well,
Let me just go on. I have a question about the shed. And I ask this question anytime I see sheds. That's because sheds have a way of popping up on properties. I think it's because a lot of times people don't realize that they might need a permit for a shed when it's in our jurisdiction. So my question is there a permit for the shed, or was that approved under some previous order of conditions?
Not a clue. I'm looking at, I have some old plans. This property goes back a long time. I have plans back from '93.
The shed's been there a while, well, it's
I
weathered.
think it's a old shed, but I don't know how long it's been there, Ed. I can't
You might
tell
want to
you.
look into that.
I will look into that as well.
I had the same questions that Tom had about the extra float. What I saw today was a little bit different from what he saw a week ago. But regardless, I think you need to sort of take a look at and understand what we have there.
We'll fix that.
On the existing dock, not shown on the plan, there's a little extra section out toward the end where they have a table and some chairs, so it's not exactly as it's drawn here. But finally, and I think maybe a significant issue, a lot of where you show the mitigation planting
Yes.
going in already has planting. In fact, it's a combination of nice rows of plants, may be done when a prior order of conditions was issued, but in both sections where you have planting, rows of plants and some gravel beds surrounding these plants. So I suggest that if the areas there are already vegetated, or at least partially vegetated,
Then the new
you
planting
can't
would
be
have to move
claiming
in.
credit for revegetating an existing vegetated area. So unfortunately, I have those comments.
Well, they're legitimate comments, and it's my apology for not trucking myself out to that thing and using,
I suspected that.
I'll bet you're
yeah.
going to take a field trip.
you betcha.
Arthur?
I just have a request. Could you, Barbara, could you please provide us with a drip edge detail?
Oh, yeah, I have that canned one that I put on the plan.
Sounds good.
Okay.
That way the contractor knows.
I'll throw
what's
that
going
on.
Thank you.
And Court?
Arthur just asked my question.
Okay,
My recommendation would be 1 by 1, at
one
least.
by one.
Yeah, an inch and a half stone.
Okay.
That's 1 foot by 1 foot.
Well, gee, just because I have yellow hair doesn't know, I didn't know that.
It was,
1 foot by 1 foot is 1 square foot? I mean, 1 by 12 by 1 or something.
1 by whatever the length is.
Could I request a continuation?
Yes, you may. And
So
we-
that I
and we'll
could
put that on the
address all
table
of these
because the
myriad of
audience-
issues?
Because the audience might have some questions too. So we'll put that on the table.
Okay.
Let's set a date, though. Jen?
I am coming back on the 25th, but you,
25th?
Yeah.
Sure.
On behalf of the applicant, I move.
on behalf of the, do you want to do the audience thing?
No, we put the motion on the table first.
On behalf of the applicant, I'd like to request a continuation until the 25th of April.
And I'll bet that's your motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience?
Thank you.
You have your marching orders? We'll
I do.
take the vote. This is a vote to,
I apologize.
that's okay. Continue this to April 25th. Everyone who agrees, say aye. Aye. Everyone who opposes, say no. Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Barbara.
No, it's somebody else's thing.
Okay, Stephen and Dana Herwick, 196 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to expand the existing patio and sitting wall to install native mitigation planting, cedar trees, a 6-foot board fence, modify the existing landscaping and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after the draft presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and registered professional land surveyor. I work for Holmes & McGrath. We prepared the plans and the notice of intent. This site is at 196 Grand Avenue in the Heights. There's an existing house, an existing garage. There was a previous order on this, and there had been a certificate of compliance issued. The proposed work is that there is an existing patio here, and they want to make it larger. There was a circular stair that was here, that how you got to the second floor, and they've taken that off, and they want to obviously change the footprint. There is a requirement for plants. This is within a Falmouth wetland regulation buffer zone B to the dunes. There is an increase in impervious area, 323 square feet in this area, and we have shown an additional 665 square feet. There's also some other work in that there are 3 pine trees here, and they look distressed, so we're going to replace those with cedars. There are 3 cedars out here, and if you've been to the site, this is not the most pleasant view to the west. So they want to move these 3 over here, and they have to add 1 because of the amount of square footage here, and they're adding a bonus 1 just to create a buffer. So this is just alteration of the ground surface. I forgot to describe something. When they take these 3 out, there's an island there, and they're going to take away the mulch and put in more lawn. That is at the very limit of the B zone. And so, in any case, I don't think that has any real alteration or real effect. So this is, as I said, the alteration of the surface and then some vegetation. And I believe that the plan we drew conforms to your regulations for redevelopment of land in your jurisdiction.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
No question.
Okay, who has this one?
Me,
Who's me?
Okay, Tom?
I think that their removal of the circular stairway and the adjustments they made for the egresses makes a lot of sense. The green screen being moved, I'd probably want to do the same. And I think that they've covered their bases as far as mitigation goes. So I don't have any questions.
Okay, Ed?
Yeah, give me a minute, all of a sudden getting this confused with another property I visited today. But I have a concern, I have something here about, no, this fence is not in the velocity zone, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what's
No,
your question?
there's no fence?
There's no fence
No
on this one.
Proposed, right?
Oh, this, that's,
Is it proposed, huh?
yeah, but it's beyond velocity zone. Here's the Falmouth velocity zone.
Yes.
Is any part of the fence
No.
proposed to be in the velocity zone?
No, it's beyond the velocity zone.
Okay.
Here's the velocity zone, Ed,
Yeah,
and here's the,
This is the velocity zone, the fence is back.
yeah, okay, I just want to make sure.
is that the only one?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I mean, if you have something else, you can ask it when we come back again. Arthur?
No questions.
No
Courtney.
questions.
Ward?
Just 2, Mike. You're planning to put more beach rows in, and I'd like to just see that it's bayberry because it's predominantly Rosa rugosa now, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you have bayberry and beach rose, so I don't know if we want to just put it 50/50 or, put the bayberry to the edges. I don't know. It's just a beach rose, Rosa rugosa, this site's had the mowing issue before. Because beach rose encroaches into the lawn,
Yes.
and it's kind of a pain in the neck, so I'd like to Just my opinion that I'd like to see bayberry planted in the grass that's existing and let the grass grow up so it's not mulched. And then if the rosa rugosa grows up under it, it'll do its thing.
Intertwine with it.
It'll intertwine with it and it'll be a better buffer.
Is that a suitable condition? Do you-
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
put that
we-
in the, we
yeah.
can condition that.
Yeah, we can condition that. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
And then the other question I have is the three cedars that are right off the patio. You have a dry well shown on the plan, and I want to know how that'll affect it when you, I don't know what size, you don't have a size on your cedars?
If you've been to the site, there's three, I don't know what kind of pines they are. Are they black
They're like a
pines?
black pine, I think.
Yeah. And so we were gonna take them out and put them in. There is a dry well that was buried at the edge of it. And,
Right. Which I was wondering, are
I'm
you
not-
going to use that, because I think that was for the old patio? For a runoff from the old patio, I don't know.
I thought that was for roof runoff.
Okay, whatever, maybe all of it, but I just don't want to compromise that dry well, because obviously it's working. And if the three cedars, that might be why those pines were in decline, that they were so close to that dry well, they might have had their roots bothered.
There's no question that there was
They
a
were.
dry
They're
well
replacing these.
installed.
Oh, they're replacing those three, all right. It says proposed,
But there are black pines that are in decline.
but they're gonna put,
replacing the pines.
They're replacing the
with
pines with cedars.
these pines, these pines?
There's three pines right here.
here.
Oh, that you're gonna replace with cedars? Okay.
Yes, because I could
So
move them.
I just move them closer to where your mitigation planting is. I
Okay.
know you
Yeah,
still want to
shift
get
them
you
south.
screened, but
Yeah.
just shift them south, that's all.
Shift them south like 3 feet.
Yeah, just so when they grow, they're not going to go into that dry
Yeah,
well.
I think that can,
Because, yeah,
right,
that can be
and that could be
conditioned too.
conditioned too.
I understand.
Those are my only questions.
Aren't you understanding tonight? Mike?
No questions.
Questions. Okay, I think we have enough
Make a
information to make
motion
a
to
decision.
close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, any further questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is Andy Bennett, and I live directly across the street at 197, property we've owned for 30 years. I just have a couple of questions. I can fully understand moving the trees and wanting to put a fence up to block that house next door. It is what it is.
Okay.
The last owner, the previous owner, came before this board, I think about 6, 7 years ago, proposing to put a stone wall around the property.
We remember that, those of us
we
who was
do.
on the
And
board.
he actually withdrew his application through objections and questions from the board. I'm not sure exactly why he did, but he went ahead and he did a beautiful job. They put in shrubs around there. I don't know. Some
A
people-
vegetative
Some of my
buffer.
neighbors don't agree with it, but I think he did a wonderful job.
We saw
And-
those today.
Pardon?
We saw those today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, they go with the area. I guess I have a selfish reason for being here, because I have a couple of pictures, and with this new fence, and I don't think, am I right, that I'm under the understanding that this board has no control over, like a fence or anything that blocks any views?
We, well, not exactly. Well,
No.
tell us what your objection
Can I
is.
show you these two pictures? Just-
Sure,
just-
but
I
you
don't-
have to give them to us, because they have to go into
Well,
the
that's what I
file.
have to, yeah.
Okay,
And what I did was I took, this is from my house, with the view across there,
okay,
and this is,
or where the fence would be.
right, my artist,
Okay.
the scale thing might not be exactly the scale, but this is my neighbor Shirley Smith, who lives on the corner of Amherst and Grand Avenue, and this is the view that she has now, minus the trucks.
Right, right.
And that's what she'll have after. And not to be selfish, but all day long when I'm there, people walk by all day long and look through there and look out to the water. And when this is done, granted, they can walk another couple hundred yards and look at the open ocean, but it's a pretty
Yeah,
view, it's a pretty view right there. And
I'm just going to ask have you talked to your neighbor
no, they
about
haven't
this?
talked to me either, so.
Yeah, well, what I would suggest is you talk to
I
him
just
too,
happened
because,
to read this in the paper. I mean, I did get a notice, but I didn't even know when the hearing was or anything. It's like,
right,
I happened to catch it in the paper because I was down here this weekend.
right,
I mean,
right.
I'll go and talk to him. I'd be glad to talk to him, but.
Yeah,
I just.
and that's what,
Yeah.
that's what I would
Yeah.
suggest.
I mean, like I said, I can fully understand why they want to block out looking next door. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But in the, you know, just the angle of that fence affects quite a few people, so.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? And perhaps Mike can talk to the client also, that this was brought up. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, closed. William McGann, 5 Foster Road, East Falmouth, for permission to install a temporary 5-foot construction access, 3 8 to 12-inch pilings with 2 2-inch by 12-inch boards attached, native mitigation plantings, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Madam Chairman, I do not see the applicant's representative.
Aha, so we'll table it? Sure.
Make a motion to table?
My second.
Thanks, Ed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Mike's not the representative.
No,
His plan, Thomas McGrath.
I understand he's not the representative.
Okay.
Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Robert and Joan Fallon, 70, is Mike still here? Is Mike right outside?
Yeah, we are. I heard my name said.
Well, where's Mike?
He was just here. He's-
Yeah, a second ago.
Well, could I have a table, motion to table that, please?
Make a motion to table?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, Even Nielsen, 94 Oyster Pond Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to remove and manage invasive plant species, reconstruct the existing path to the water with timber landscape ties and crushed stone, remove turf areas near the coastal bank, install native plant species and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we continued this project so that I can go out and, with the applicant's representative.
Excuse me.
After the last hearing, there was some confusion on the.
Excuse me, Jen, if people have something to say, please leave the room.
Sarah, you weren't in here before, so they just tabled it, sorry.
I was right here in the hallway.
Well, we didn't see you, hon, so we're just gonna table it until we're done with Mr. Talbot, okay?
Sorry.
Jen?
Sorry about that, Mike.
We just had this 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes. and
So
there was
those
some
of us who
confusion
were
on
not
the-
here 2 weeks ago, 1,
Do you know what
2,
the quorum is?
What is the quorum?
It's
I will
Courtney,
get you the
Ed,
quorum.
Tom, Betsy, Arthur, Mike, and Ted.
Yeah, I thought I was here for this.
okay, then it must have been more than 2 weeks ago.
It was 3:21.
Jen, why did we continue this?
Because there was concerns with the overlays of the Holmes and McGrath plan with Mr. Talbot's plan.
Oh, right.
I went out to the site, the scales are a bit different, but the top of the coastal bank, and Ted, I think you had an issue where the top of the coastal bank was in the field and where those shrub plantings were gonna be.
Yeah, I remember the top of the
Right.
stake at least was at the edge of this, I see as this path, that's what I assumed, where,
Is this a new one?
that's where I saw it in the field.
Yeah, I know.
And they're
there's a
showing
couple
it halfway down the bank.
And it, I understand that, but I think it's fairly clearly marked in the field where the top of the bank is and where the shrub plantings are gonna go.
Okay.
So I don't really have too many concerns with it. The shrubs are obviously gonna go on the bank and not the grass is coming back over it. But I did understand what your
Okay.
concern was. And I believe that is the only reason we,
And we were awaiting a DEP
oh, and
number,
the
which has
DEP
come in.
number, which has come in.
Oh, good. So, Mike, do you want to say anything, or do you want us just to
No, I
close
just,
the hearing?
the McGrath plan was at a 20 scale, our plan was blown up to a 10 scale, but I showed Jennifer that, they were the same plan, and when we looked at it in the field, there is one area where the bank is very narrow, where the top of the bank is. to the wetland is a very narrow area as is shown on the plan, but that is in fact, we measured it out
Okay.
and the home to McGrath plan is correct. So basically, and I have photos if we need to, but where there's turf now is going to be grassland, and where there's bank and invasives is going to be all shrubs.
Right.
And we will put an erosion netting wherever we remove any of the invasives. And Jennifer was fine with that, and it corresponds to our plan.
Okay,
So it all seemed fine.
okay, good. If there are no more questions, let's have a motion on the table.
Move to close.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Got that, Susan? Okay, motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Move to untable McGann.
Are you here for William McGann?
Yes.
All right.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Did you get that, Susan? We untabled McGann.
Courtney move.
Courtney, Ed.
That was Ed, Courtney. Ed
I made the
moved.
motion, Courtney seconded.
Okay, William McGann, 5 Foster Road, East Falmouth, for permission to install a temporary 5-foot construction access, 3 8 to 12-inch pilings with 2 2-inch by 12-inch boards attached, native mitigation plantings, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I will save any of my comments until after the applicant's presentation.
Okay. Yes?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you call my name. I was actually in the hall.
Okay, I have to ask you, and I'll tell you I made the same mistake on Monday night. You have to tell us who you are, and you have to hold the microphone.
My name is Tara Martin. I'm from the Woods Hole Group, and I represent Bill McGann, presenting a project at 5 Foster Road, which is at the end of Davisville Extension. The proposed project is to replace an existing fence that has been running along the property line. It's been in existence since at least 1968. The proposed work includes, I don't know if this is even working, replacing 3 8-inch piles right along the property line and putting 2x4s across there, basically to make a fence between the public right-of-way and Mr. McGann's property. Mr. McGann's, it is a private beach. He's not trying to stop anybody from walking on the beach. He's not trying to impede access for fishing, fouling, navigating. People obviously have the right to do that under Chapter 91, the state regulations. He's just trying to keep his upper portion of his beach private because it is directly attached to the public beach at the end of Davisville Extension. I did put a little collage together here to show that this fence, and these aerial photographs at the top here actually came from the town website. They show that as far back as 1968, this fence was in place. There's one fence on the eastern side, there's one fence on the western side. Mr. McGann's is on the eastern side. This is an area where most of the shoreline here is armored, coastal engineering structures, there's old bulkheads, there's groins, there's just a myriad of coastal engineering structures along here. In the location where he actually proposes to replace the fence has been there for at least 44 years, that's what I know. It did get damaged, and Mr. McGann was concerned about safety issues, so he actually pulled the piles out a couple months ago and stockpiled them on his property in the 2x4s that ran along. So these are the old aerial photographs that date from 1968, and there was actually a more recent one, but it was so washed out, I didn't bother printing it. These are the more recent on-the-ground photographs since I've been working with Mr. McGann, from 07, 08, 09, basically just showing you that this is what the fence looks like. It's pretty simple fence. It's basically 3 piles with just some 2x4s across it. I don't know that this fence had ever had a permit in the past, but it has been in place for about 50 years. There is one on the opposite side of the beach access that prevents access onto Mr. Cedroni's property. 2 years ago, some of the boards got damaged here, and under an administrative review, Mr. McGann was actually allowed to put the boards back. And he's basically just requesting to rebuild what was there to begin with. Construction access will be same construction access that we used for the June restoration project 3 years ago. Came in from the driveway. He only needs a Bobcat to do this work. We actually originally proposed to come in by barge, but just because of the conditions here, and the fact that there's so many piles and stuff out in the intertidal zone, really can't get in here by barge to do this work. So there's gonna be a 5-foot access along here, which runs right along the fence, right here. We used the same access, we replanted it, and we will replant it this time too. Take 1 day to do the work. Work's gonna be done by Gilmore Marine. They will, use the Bobcat to spin the piles down and then put the 2x4s across. And then we will restore the access when we're done. We won't be able to restore with the beach grass until the fall, because now we've already we've already reached the deadline, the April 15th deadline. But we will replant the access when we're finished. I have been out here with Jen. We've actually had a couple of site visits to this site.
Is that it?
I think so.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Tara, did you explain that you're relocating them so they're along the property line?
Oh, right, exactly. So the way that the piles originally had been placed, they actually were, and this is the way they've been for many years, they were actually a few feet over the property line. So we went out and had a survey done, so if you went on the site visit and saw the stakes, we've actually relocated the piles so they're on Mr. McMahon's property, and they're not on property of the town right away.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a few comments, Madam Chairman. I know the board has been, or some of you have been notified by concerned abutters about the encroachment of the pilings on town property and the restricted access with the placement of the board, or the perceived restricted access with the placement of the board. So I did advise Mr. McGann and his representatives that this filing was the proper course of action to go, just because that whole area is just being, there's a lot of abutter concern. But I think with the removal of the pilings off of town property and opening up that access, that takes care of some of the encroachment concerns that the neighbors have. As far as the replacement of the boards on the pilings to create the fence that is going to be where the ceiling.
Okay, thank you. Who has this one? Court?
Ted? I have no questions, and I'll move to close.
And you'll move to close? No. Ted?
I see.
We won't, I won't accept the second on that one. Ted?
I understood this, the straightening out of the property lines, and you're pretty much what was there before. I mean, they're not 2x4s, they're 2x12s, they're a whole different matter. It's a much bigger board, but it was there before as in the photograph, so.
Yep, we really just want to.
And that's a nice job of documenting for us to simply see, that this is what was there before and this is what's been going on over time.
And it has been
Understand it.
maintained. He's been really good. He's owned the property since 2003. And Jen can probably tell you that he has been really good at maintaining this when the boards, get damaged during the storms. He gets them out of there right away. He did take everything out when it got damaged. There was a big storm this past winter. And I said, maybe we should have left them in there. And he said, well, you know what? I'd rather take my chances and take them out. We can prove that they've been there all along. I thought it was a safety issue. I just didn't want the stuff on the beach. So, he's been good at maintaining these and make sure that there are no safety issues associated with the boards coming loose, or he did, replace these with the Conservation Commission a couple years ago.
That's it.
Mike?
The fence is in the velocity zone, is that correct?
Yes.
In that photo, I can't really tell from here, the color one to the right, the end of the fence, what is that right next to it? Actually, I'll just get it.
It's
At
all-
the end of it?
The pilings.
It's all that old bulkhead that's
Okay.
out in the intertidal zone, which actually stretches along this whole section of coastline. A lot of the ones
We
in
know.
Mr. McGann's property are
Right.
broken off, so you
Well,
can't
the
see.
reason I'm asking this question is your plan doesn't depict what's on the photo. Your plan shows the fence, if I'm not mistaken, I can't really tell, but it looks like the last post is at mean high water, but you have it on your photo that it's going right down to those old bulkhead posts. So there should be a distance if you,
It is going to mean high water based on the surveyor's drawing. It's not going below.
Could be
mean
the
high water.
angle, because if you look, if you're here on the
no, I
coastal
walked
line-
it. It's
Oh.
right now, you can't get between the fence and the bulkhead, am I correct?
There is no fence there right now.
Well, when it was there. I went out
You know
to-
what, the beach changes, sometimes that
Yeah.
old bulkhead is actually covered with sand. A couple more months and you won't even see the bulkhead.
Well, I just
again.
want to make sure that
The space is there.
there's space there, so you
Okay.
can walk between.
Sure.
And I want it, what's not on that photograph, what's on this plan.
Okay, actually, these photographs were taken at various times over the past
Right.
4 or 5 years.
That's what I just want to make sure.
So it's so dynamic, it changes a lot. But yeah, I will make sure that there is right of way between the bulkhead, you know, the old bulkhead,
Yeah,
so
'cause
that
it-
people can have, there's no
Yeah, the
issue
older
with
one
people-
shows the space,
Yeah, it does.
but then you're right. Was-
And
well,
if
that's
you scale it.
2010, right?
Well, now here, it just, you know, it varies, depends on what the beach looks like.
Well, no, because the bulkhead posts the old bulkhead doesn't move.
Okay,
It's
so
been
you
there
just wanna make sure
forever.
that there's
I
access.
mean,
And
I've
the
been
last-
down there
And the last
months-
post doesn't move.
And the last
No.
post doesn't move, so
Okay.
I just want to make sure that it
But you're
doesn't
right, the
go-
2009 does show going into the bulkhead.
It
and
did,
so
when
does the
Cedrones, I've
2008.
been out there, and you couldn't walk across.
Okay, we
So-
will make sure that that there is access.
Yeah, well,
Landward of the bulkhead and seaward of the
then,
tile. so
the
that
next question I have,
public can-
who put that original fence in? Was it the town, or was it Mr.?
Well, it
Or was
wasn't
it
him, he's
whoever
only
was
had
on-
it since 2000.
Because in your narrative, you said you said you went back to 10 years, which I'm glad you went further, because it shows the piles have been there for at least 10 years, and I'm glad you gave us more
Well, you know,
history.
this was actually relatively new. I found these photos on the town website within the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
And Jen had said to me in the past that, you know, the fence has been there a long time, like all the old photos, but some of the Google Earth images, it's hard to, you know, decipher what's there and what isn't there. And so I looked at the town website last week and I thought, oh my gosh, there's the fence, it's almost 50 years that the fence has been there. So that's why I put the collage together, and it's consistently there. It's not like it was there and it was gone. I mean, right up till the 90s. And then I started working on this property, I don't know, probably 2004, 2005, but for Mr. McGann in 2007 when we started the beach nourishment project. So, you know, that's where the most
Hurricane Bob
recent
might have
photos
taken some of
came
it.
from. But there was a little bit of a gap there for me for a while, so I actually found the photos on the town website.
So the question I had was it put there by the town, or 50 years ago, probably by the town?
I don't know.
We don't know. Okay, we don't know.
We have some people in the audience.
Well, that's an important
And I guess
question,
my
though.
only other concern
We have to find that out.
is
Well,
that,
we'll see, we'll let
because
those
if
people
the town
testify.
put it in, then, you know, I'm not gonna say that you've had it for 60 years if the town, it's been on town property for 50 years.
Well, part of it is
50 years.
most of it is on Mr. McGann's property, and then a portion of it was on the town property, and that's the part that we moved off of the town property.
Is that
But
the upper
But
end
none
or
of
the
it is
lower
there
end?
now for us to look
Part
at.
of it is there, the part
And
that
I
still
have a
runs
thought.
through the dune,
Was
She has
that
the
above or below, which was on the town property?
on the beach portion, so that's the part that we moved over to make sure that it was, you know, completely on Mr. McGann's
And then,
property.
my last question to you is, and you do know it is in the V zone?
Right, it's my
Okay.
understanding that you can put freestanding piles in the V zone,
No,
just based on the Falmouth.
That might be this way, but not
Horizontal.
horizontal. So, and this board has consistently not allowed fencing in a V zone. So I just want to be consistent. And I'm not against the project, but I'm going to be consistent with our regulations in the V zone, so.
I'm gonna go next, so we're going down. And I wanna know how many times since Mr. McGann's had it, he's had to replace boards. Because my suggestion is, if there is gonna be a replacement fence, it should be something that can be put up for the summer and taken down for 9 months of the year, when it's most likely to be damaged.
So meaning replacing, taking the boards down? and
Yeah, how many
putting the-
times does he, I mean, I'm sure
I've
it
only
went
known
and
of
Bob.
once that he's actually, I mean, he's only been there since 2003, and I do know that he replaced the boards, John might know better, but I think it was 2 years ago, and I didn't do that for him. He worked directly with Jen to actually
Yeah,
replace the
but I'm
toilets.
suggesting doing it as a seasonal, suggesting
So
having
place
it
the
as a.
piles in, because certainly you wouldn't want to put the piles in and out every year.
No, the piles,
No.
and you have a license for the piles.
Yeah.
But what
Maybe
we're talking,
ropes.
our concern are the, and the piles are probably, unless there's a huge hurricane, the piles are probably gonna stay. But the horizontal boards in any kind of big waves are gonna just get blasted out.
Maybe you could do like
Well,
ropes.
I did talk about this with Mr. McGann, and he, yesterday, and he said that the way that the boards are actually putting in is they're not just being nailed, they're actually being drilled, bolted through, all the way through the pile and fastened on the other side, so that they're gonna be a lot more secure than they ever have been before.
Okay, well, we'll go down. It's your turn next, then your turn, then your turn, then your turn, and then the audience's
I will say
turn.
one thing, that most of the engineering structures here, like everything within the intertidal zone, all of these, old bulkheads and, which are vertical structures, not only in the V zone, but in the intertidal zone, most of this is licensed through the state and through the town. Most of these are actually licensed, permitted structures that have been there for 50, 60 years. I dug through and went through all the old, DCR has all these old contracts and trying to find licenses. Most of the stuff is actually licensed through the state.
Okay, yes.
Nice packet.
Thank you.
It was easy for me to not spill my coffee on it because it was in a binder. A licensed structure, I really have no issue with replacement. Moving it on his own property, kudos. I think that I had walked around and talked to a couple people that lived in the neighborhood, and they enjoyed the fact that straightening it out. They did express a concern about access, and I think we've addressed that. I think that we've been crystal clear that that forward pile, the seaward pile, has to be far enough back to grant access around, comfortable access around that. We're all on the same page. Being a through bolted area into that pile, you establish something that you can take apart for the winter season. Look at his property, he's a good steward of his property, and I have every confidence that he does keep an eye on this. There was no testimony different than that from the neighbors. I think that how far back you want to take the fence apart is what I'm, that, is it the 3 piles that we make it, where do we stop disassembling the fence for the wintertime? That's my only concern.
I will add one thing about the whole thing too, and, when you said he is a good steward of the property, as part of the process for the fence, and we talked about this with Jen, Mr. McGann said, if I can help the town, and I know that you guys weren't really interested in hearing this in the beginning, but maybe you're interested now. Obviously, the Davisville extension portion of the beach has a lot of riprap, piles, stuff like on the beach itself. So making access for the people that come down to use Davisville extension portion of the beach, it's difficult because they almost can't even get into the water, which is why I think a lot of people probably want access around Mr. McGann's. Mr. McGann had offered that he, at his own cost, would remove all of that stuff for the town to enhance the public beach, take the stones out when we're putting the fence up, remove all of those timber piles that are, right at the intertidal zone to open up the public beach more, because right now there is almost no access.
But that's not on the table tonight.
No, but I'm
So-
offering it to you if you would like to see that.
One other concern, the machine that's going to be coming down is going to use an auger and then hand place a pile in? Is that, I'd like to make sure that has biofluid in it, as
Okay.
opposed to
We can condition
the
that.
hydraulic.
We've
Well,
done
just
that.
letting them know it.
Yep.
I will be out there during construction to monitor everything that goes on,
Okay, and
and I can get you equipment specs on, whatever type of bobcat he's gonna use, if that's.
it's just the hydraulic oils is
Yep.
what I'm concerned with. He's going to be out there
one day.
Yeah, for a very short period of time. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Ed?
Yeah, a couple of things. Thank you for the photos. Of course, I'm sitting here, I really can't see any of the detail. You will be leaving those with us,
Sure.
and during the next week, I'll have an opportunity to go into the office and take a close look at those.
Want me to bring over so you can see them now?
No, I need to spend some time looking at them. Also, you mentioned a lot of these have licenses. Think we'd like to see copies of licenses that might exist.
Okay.
And
The fence
then we
is
have
on the
to-
chapter 91 license, which is in the application. Which Jen actually provided me a copy of.
Okay, but anything you think is important to your,
My point of that
Sure.
being that a lot of these are vertical structures in the entire zones that, have boards and, I'm not saying that the fence was part of that, and I'm not even exactly sure if Mr. McGeehan's structure is licensed, but a lot of these structures on here are licensed vertical
well, we just need
structures.
to know what's licensed and what is not licensed, so you can help us with
Sure.
what's licensed.
Well, his structure would have to be licensed, because
His
it's,
groin is licensed.
no, this would have to be licensed by Chapter 91.
The pilings are licensed,
Yeah.
through the old, they're just relocating them. They'll need to work with Chapter 91 on that. I don't need to know, and I really don't think the board needs to know whether or not the vertical structures, at this point in time, you don't need to know if the structures along the shoreline are licensed. You're solely looking at the three pilings that are being replaced.
No, I'm
and the
only
fence.
concerned with what her project is.
Yes, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Ed's asking for licenses. We have a copy of the license that showed those filings having a Chapter 91
Okay.
number.
I mean, as a courtesy, I can provide you what I do have.
I'd like as much information as possible, because I want to know what's on town property and what's on Mr. McGann's property. And some of these licenses might be able to help show that. I'm just looking at,
I'm not really sure that it
Getting the
pertains to the
facts.
fence project, but I can provide you with what I have if you just want it for informative
All right.
reasons.
finally, let me do say that I think you now have put an interesting proposition on the table. That is to say, removing some of the stones down there on the beach and some of the timber piles. That might be some kind of a compensatory action that would make a lot of the people in the neighborhood happy. Anybody in the neighborhood wants to react to that, we'd appreciate the input either tonight or sometime during the week. Because that might play a role in how we now out in this project. But finally, there is one very,
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with discussing that until it's on the table,
it's on the table now.
Yeah, but the audience might not be reacting to it. There
Madam
might be
Chairman,
people
for
who
one
do
reason.
or don't want it.
The staff has not reviewed that. I talked with Tara about it. I told her it was
And
off
we
the
haven't-
table
we
when
haven't
this
reviewed
project
it.
came forward. I have not gone down to see what they want to remove. I have not gone down to see if the bulkheads, what condition the stones are under the bulkhead. So the staff is not comfortable.
Yeah, and there's
having
no
the board
public
review
notice
that.
about it.
And I don't think it should be, well, if you do this, then maybe we'll look favorably on your fence. You should review this fence project on its own merits. It's 3 pilings.
Well, we all react to projects differently. It makes a difference to me, so I consider it on the table, and I'm interested in hearing more about it. But that's just me. I don't speak for the rest of the commissioners and would never pretend to do so. There is one very important point I need to bring up. I just visited the site today, as I visited all of the sites before us. It was a fine day to be driving along the coastline of Falmouth, a beautiful day. When I got to this site, I did look at some of the stakes, and I saw a stake that said end of fence. And that stake today, sometime early afternoon, was in the water. And so it certainly was not above the high water mark. It was somewhere around 2. Someone could research and find out what the tide status was at that point in time. But it was clearly in the water by about, every wave was like 18 inches farther up on the beach from your stake. But there was also very definite evidence to my eye that very, very recently, the water had gone at least 5 feet, maybe 6 to 7 feet seemed to me to be what I was looking at as a high water mark. I mean, definite signs of very
We just had
recent
a
water
full
at a
moon.
certain level.
We've just had spring tides, so the tides are going to be higher than what the mean high water is.
Yeah, mean is mean.
So
Moon
you
is
bring
moon.
high tide and then you throw 20-mile-an-hour wind on it, you're gonna get water hitting the revetment and probably.
Well, there wasn't much wind today. It was a very mild day. But that's what I saw
windy
today. I saw a
yesterday,
steak in the water. And I have a real issue therefore, and I believe yeah, that's a real issue when it comes to Chapter 91 licensing, because the public access will not be there where you had that steak today.
Okay, I agreed that we would make sure that the most seaward pile provides sufficient access for people to get around the end of the fence.
But we need to have that on a, we need to have that.
Is based on 75 years of data, and, you know, I've already talked about this with Chapter 91, and there is already a license for this. So when you go out on the field in any one given day, I mean, you know this, anything that you see out there isn't necessarily what's averaged over the long term. I mean, that beach out there changed dramatically. I mean, even the piles along the beach, during the summertime, you can't even see them. The level of the beach rises and falls 2 or 3 feet between the winter time and the summertime. So when we do mean high water, I mean, it's an average of all the high waters, averaged over, I don't know the exact number, 50 or 75 years. And, you know, we've been doing beach profiles out here since we did the dune nourishment project. We're monitoring the site pretty closely. So what you necessarily saw out there today isn't necessarily where mean high water is. I mean, these are based on elevations coming off of a benchmark on the land based on tidal datums, and not necessarily what you see, but I will guarantee that we will provide access around, between the pile and the, you know, wooden cribbing that's out there now.
Very good points you make, but I have to say, yes, this beach has been changing quite a bit, and there's been some recession over the past, you mentioned the word 75 years, so I think it's inappropriate to use the average of the last 75 years, because it certainly doesn't represent what exists today.
Ed, this is a regulatory, mean high tide is a regulatory value.
Right.
And
we're trying to figure out what it is.
Mike could probably tell how many years and what.
It was
the
taken
mean-
last year.
Well, mean high tide of 10 years ago is not relevant. I want to know what mean high tide is today.
4/21, 2011 is, his marking on is April 21st, 2011.
Mike, can you come up and explain
Last year.
how you put mean high tide on a chart?
Mean high water.
The United States government, I forget what they now call it.
National Geodetic Vertical Data.
No,
That's what
no,
it's based
no,
on.
it's,
Or Geodetic
No,
Survey.
they keep renaming the agency.
NOAA?
The bottom line, yes, but there's
It's
a,
one of the
it's
offices.
19-year APARC is what they call it. So it's the mean of the high tides over 19 years.
Over 19 years?
Yes.
And the closest high tide, the closest tidal gauge, that's what they use? Like they
Well, what
use
they've
Woods
actually
Hole?
done is that they have gone through and measured between NGVD and mean low water benchmarks all over the Cape, and they've published a chart that lists those items. So that's how surveyors get from NGVD
To mean high water in
to
any
mean
given
high
area.
water. You're supposed to adjust it because of the rising of the ocean.
It's confusing. It started in 1929, then it converted to 1988, and then the data is constantly changing. But it's consistent up and down the East Coast. So it's the only data that we have to go on. It's
But
what
the
every-
point is, Ed, you can go to the field at any given time, like the pictures I showed the other day. Sometimes high tide means the water goes over the dock at the end of Old Dock Road. But that's
I'm well
above.
aware of that fact. In fact, on site today, I had some passing comment by a person who was there actually removing some of the stones from the beach and putting them in a truck, and I suggested that probably wasn't a good idea, and while I wasn't going to rat on her, she might want to put them back, because it's sort of picking stuff up off town property, and you really can't do that. And she was very polite and apologized and did that. But then she also did make the passing comment that, gee, you know, it's a shame that this beach, all that sand they brought in here, it's all gone now.
No.
So the beach is very, very dynamic. It comes and goes, and, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the dredged materials don't last very long. So these things do change quite a bit. I'm very, very much aware of that. And we have to sort out this board on on how we interpret the regulations and what's permissible. And I'll just close by saying, like Maury, I personally have a problem with the fences that are put into the Falmouth velocity zone. I have a real problem with that. I always have.
Well,
And generally speaking, this board has had a problem with that.
I just want to reiterate, this fence has been here for 50 years.
That's why I'm asking for a lot of details on
There are houses
the,
built in the velocity zone in Falmouth. I mean, this
Let's,
is,
let's not have a discussion of velocity zone. Let's continue on this project, okay?
that's
You're
all I
done?
have to say.
okay, well, can I add some science to it? The reason for the velocity zone is not only for the projectiles, but because anything that's in the velocity zone can change the shape of the beach, sediment transport patterns. These 3 piles are not going to do that.
But the lateral board might change the direction of the water. The lateral
We're not
parts of
going to
this
have
fence.
an argument on this.
Okay.
Arthur, it's your turn.
I'm good, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Arthur.
Come on.
Courtney?
I have no questions. The only observation is that what's in front of us is a fence, not moving rocks or piles. That's outside the scope of this work, so I disagree with my fellow commissioner on that. I think we should stick to that. If somebody wants to pull piles and rocks, they can file a separate notice of intent. Thank you.
Okay, and actually, this is not just, it's not Falmouth velocity zone, this is in the velocity zone. It's in V18, the FEMA velocity zone, V18, elevation 14.
That's right, as well as the,
Well, DEP had no comments.
Jesus Christ.
Enough, everyone.
Okay?
Tara,
Board
are they
and-
going to use a low pressure bobcat in the tracks to go down?
I'm not sure. but
Because it might not even really disturb that beach grass. If-
Right, I mean, if it's the beach grass, it probably won't, because we can cut it back and it will just come in, but if there are
And he
any
still has the
really-
timbers there, right? Am I correct? They were up
Yes.
on the, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
they're there, the materials are there.
The materials are there, yeah. So,
Right, so you know, the beach grass will certainly, but if there's any woody stuff, we would certainly, we're gonna have to wait till the fall probably to see what does come back and what does not. We'll figure out what we need to plant. We'll have to wait till the fall to figure out what we have to plant.
I'm just trying to mitigate as much
And then I will
damage.
certainly provide a landscape plan if we can.
Do we want to continue this, or do we want to close this? Do we have
Make a motion to close.
Close.
Make a motion
Take it
to close
under-
the hearing and take it
Second.
under advisement.
Okay,
There's a woman there.
I know, there's several people in the back who would like to say something. Now it's time. Now that the motion's on the table.
Okay.
And we can always take motions off the table, but it's just to help us kind of move along.
My name is Priscilla Moore, and I've lived for 1,000 years down at that beach. No, not quite. I have been going to that beach since you held the hand of your mother all the way to the beach. The only problems that I have come up with was that in the last 2 or 3 years, when that end of the fence was knocked down by nature or whatever, when it was replaced, all of a sudden it would be encroaching on the public right-of-way or on the public beach. And each time it was put back, you looked at it, and then finally, perhaps early last summer, the final putback of that end of the fence was so deeply into the public beach that we actually got measurements and went down. And it was, I found out at that very same time that the town of Falmouth was surveying the whole of Davisville extension from the knot down. And is this the one that you have?
I don't know, you'll have to show
Oh
us.
dear, okay. And, I don't know who did this, but, let's see where, right down here.
No, and I'll bet that's the only one you have.
No, I have a page for about 8 of them.
Oh, can we have it? Because we need it
Yeah.
for our record.
Yes.
Thank you.
And as you look at the end, I got Mr. Peter
Connerty, right.
And I asked him that I felt there
Oh, I
was
see.
something really wrong with the end of the fence, the last segment or segment and a half. And I said, could you extend what you're doing in surveying the area, because it's a problem zone for drainage? And he said, yes. So as you look on that, you will find that in the measurement, it actually wasn't 8 feet, it was 7.4 feet. And you actually can see on that map where the end of the fence went over on the public property. And you are correct that part of that fence has been there forever. We used to nickname it Dr. Davis's fence, because he owned the property, which is now Matt Cedroni's on the west side. And he put in a fence down the line, which you can see is perfectly accurate, except he added another piling of down in the rocks and put the boards back along that, restricting people from going to that side. From a picture, you will not be able to see 7.4 feet. But as a kid, you'd go down to the end of the fence and you would walk out on, I don't know what you have a bulkhead, you might have been calling it. It was that asphalted or like pine tree sap material. And you walked on top of it out on those pilings that are seen in the water. Now, over the last 2 or 3 years, they have finally given way. But that's the end of the old fence. And so when the end of this fence that's on land, you're standing there and there's the end. You can see yourself that this is encroachment is on that particular thing. That survey is excellent from, as I say, every point tied out. So there is an accurate survey of the beach. We know where the fence belongs. If it goes back on the correct property, perfect. Now, the problem is that the rocks were put in by the town when probably David Jones was 10 years old. He remembers the town coming down and putting the rocks in. They were in back of the pilings that go along the shoreline. We did not have the huge storms that we usually have, as you all know, this spring. Sometimes, when we have the northeast storms, the sand will fill in clear out the end of the jetty. But this year, of course, you don't. So it's been very, very difficult in the last couple of years for people on the public beach to get down through the rocks and get into the water. So many people have tried to go around the end of the fence. But the way it was put now was such that the posts were in the rocks. There was no way. You had to climb through, climb over. And we had 2 incidences where older people got in the water and they couldn't get them out. And they floated them over to McGann's property, brought them ashore, and the poor woman, in this case, couldn't get through the fence. So then they had to float her back out and bring her to the fence at the end of the rocks, and 4 people finally got her out of the water. So we know, there's no question that the end of the McGann fence blocks the right-of-way of people going along the beach. My father used to say to us, if your feet are in the water, you're okay. We always thought it was mean low tide. I hear you people talking mean high tide.
Between the two.
But I don't know. There's nothing to say on the beach where that is, and you know as the seasons go. But it's the blocking of people from use of the public beach and blocking the people from walking the shoreline. There are 2 major problems here. And if every time it breaks and the post is moved over, and blocks the way, who's going to check on it? Who's going to, again, work on that? So I leave you with that background. I can do no more than that, but that is the accurate survey down there, and you can actually see what has happened. And yes, you may have it. Do you have any questions of me from my memory? Anything you want to know?
Just, I think the most important thing that I learned from what you said is that you know that it was put up as a private fence.
Yeah.
Probably originally along property lines, but if posts had to be, got pulled because of storms, right. And I think they're trying to move it back so it's And we've heard testimony that they're going to allow room to go around, so.
I do have one other thing that came to me. If they refill, renourish, I want to make sure that the elevation of the renourishment is no higher than so stated on that map from Peter McGonerty, because water flows off Mr. McGann's land down to that newly impregnable pile of sand, a road, and nourishment. Where is it going to go? It will go onto the public beach, and who's going to say anything then? So
Well, this project has nothing to do with
yeah, it
beach
does,
nourishment.
because that's where the fence gets moved.
There's no nourishment.
No, this
aspect of
particular
this
project has
Okay.
no nourishment.
All right,
But we will take that, I think
I'm
you are.
sorry then.
There was, you're right that there was nourishment, and you are monitoring it. So we'll have to look in the record with that.
Okay.
Because if it's significantly higher and it's causing erosion on the public beach, that could be an issue. But that's for another day.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
wanna- wait,
Wait
do you
a
wanna-
second.
Oh,
Do you want to clarify for Mrs. Moore the issue about, mean high water and low water, and that is the area that you're allowed to transfer, and this post is shown clearly on this plan to be proposed to be above mean high water, right at
we're all
that
right.
point. So that's as best you can do with this, as we were talking about the adjustable
okay.
marking of the mean high water line. It's not going to block your, or the state land,
Okay.
let's put it that way.
I don't know all the details.
The
of
land
that, so-
belongs to the state from the mean high water down.
Mean high water
Yeah.
down. Does that mean you can walk from mean high
Well,
water?
it's
to the water?
actually, for the mean low, but I mean,
Oh.
between those two, between the mean low and the mean high, you are allowed to go back and forth for fishing, fouling, and navigating.
Okay, but not for just walking the beach.
No, you can walk the beach.
Yes, but you can't go beyond,
Strolling.
above the mean high water, that's private.
Oh, I agree with that, and that's what's been verbally assaulted if you step on that.
Well,
Children in swimming, catching their boogie board that gets up on the beach. This
Right.
is the kind of
but that's just the way it's,
Enough
He's
said.
just telling you
I'm
what
just
the,
letting you know that
understand
that
that.
we're not allowing the fence to go beyond that point.
All right,
And I don't know, maybe Mike can tell us, but that looks to me a half inch. And a half inch is 10 feet from those existing piles in the water.
We'll provide that access.
thanks very much.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
I think she covered it all, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike?
The ownership most likely goes to extreme low water, the private ownership. The public has the right to pass and repass for fishing,
Fouling,
fouling,
and
and navigating. They do not have rights to sunbathe or basically swim unless they stay out beyond mean low water.
Correct.
So I just want to clarify
Yeah,
what
thank you.
the rights are.
Any other questions?
Yeah, do we have an accurate plan which shows how far out this fence is going to be put?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
Right
a
here.
verbal promise, but nothing on paper.
It's right here.
We do. I mean, this
That's why-
project is done by Holmes and McGrath.
That's why I wanted to have Mike tell us, to me, this measures half an inch from the old piles in the water to the end of the fence. And that would give people a sense of being able to measure when the fence goes in. That's 10 feet to scale. So, I mean, I don't know if it's exactly, but
At least.
it's like 10 feet to scale. And if Mike wants to corroborate that, then people, when the fence goes up, can see that's 10 feet, and that's where it should be. Simple, because you have an existing,
Except if all
Reference
that
point.
stuff, except if all that stuff's covered with sand, if a big slug of sand comes in.
what, the piles?
Yeah.
They look like they're standing up pretty high.
Well,
Whatever, it's an existing reference point.
okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Right, Susan? Okay, are there any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the audience? We'll take a vote on this. All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, any abstention? So 6 ayes and 1 opposed. Thank you. Could I have an on-table,
Make a motion on table.
Fallon?
Fallon's project.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Chairman, your quorum for this project is Courtney, Ed, Tom, yourself, Arthur, Mike, and Ted.
Okay,
Courtney?
Yep, Courtney.
yeah, it wasn't last week, it wasn't 2 weeks ago, it was 3
Yeah, I was
weeks
here.
ago.
I was here for
Betsy,
that.
Arthur, Mike, and Ted.
Courtney just wasn't here 2 weeks ago.
I was here for this one.
Yep. Robert and Joanne Fallon, 71 and 75 Little Island Road, West Falmouth, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a new 5-bedroom, single-family house with attached garage, deck, porch stairs, to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, pervious driveway, dry wells, utilities, maintenance of the existing irrigation system, installation of mitigation, replacement, and restoration plantings, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, you continue this hearing so that Mr. McGrath could provide additional information to the board regarding, one, the location of the septic system, two, more information on the breakaway panels, the square foot difference in both Mike's version of the velocity zone and the velocity zone itself. He provided us on his own additional information regarding the state building code and existing permits. So there were, I believe, everything that the board had asked.
Did you have the
for
wetlands,
last hearing.
wetlands reflagged?
I did ask Mike about the wetlands and the root systems were, as you said, Mike, right, too difficult to get through on the bamboo. I really don't have additional concerns with the bamboo at this time.
Mike?
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional land surveyor. I work for Holmes and McGrath. Accompanying me tonight are Mr. and Mrs. Fallon, Ralph Gattalo, John Papich, the landscape architect, and Sally West. I'm sorry, Sally.
Oh, you
First
meant the
thing
other
that-
wetland, Madam Chairman, across the street. I thought you meant the bamboo that I was questioning about.
I wrote sort of a lengthy letter with, sure.
Sir? Mr. Fallon? Tell us who you are and speak into the microphone.
I'm Robert Fallon, and I'm the owner of the house at 75 Little Island Road that's going to be redeveloped. Madam Chairman, you mentioned that we're going to make it a 5-bedroom house. In fact, it's going to be a 4-bedroom house. It's currently a 5-bedroom house. I think that's where the misinterpretation.
Okay, I'm just reading what's on my chart.
Well,
I'm not trying to confuse the issue.
Okay, I just wanted to point out and make that correction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mike?
We submitted a letter dated April 4th that I've broken down into 2 parts. I submitted, I think, 12 different copies of information that I brought to the hearing, and I explained it in greater detail. And the reason I did that was that so that you would have a chance to review them more than what you saw at the hearing. There was new information requested from the commission, and one of them was, will the septic tank float in a flood event? And the answer is no, the septic tank will not float. And we gave you copies of the actual calculations. What is the volume of fill that's going to be used to build the site? And we wrote less than 100 cubic yards. How will the floor or ground surface be graded under the house? And I gave you 2 sections. I'm sorry, I gave you a plan. And basically, there, if you look, there's an old house here, and we're just leaving that concrete slab in place. And then in here, we are altering the surface, but there'll be a elevated rectangular lump there that would reflect more or less the shape of the grade underneath the ground north of the existing house. Describe alternative materials for breakaway walls. We looked at a couple of other materials and we didn't think that they were as durable and as strong as the materials that were proposed. What are the impervious areas in the velocity zone before and after construction? Total existing impervious area in the velocity zone is 2964. The total proposed area in the velocity zone is 5,050 square feet. Add the wetland boundary across the street. There was also a question about how much is floor area in the velocity zone. The existing total floor area of all the different levels in the existing house is 4,403 square feet. Of that, 2,516 square feet is in the velocity zone. The total proposed floor area is 5,730 square feet. There's no proposed habitable space in the velocity zone. All the proposed habitable space is above the velocity zone. A bunch of numbers, sounds confusing as hell. Pictures is worth 1,000 words. This is the project that's across the street and down. The red was the existing, and the orange is what you approved for habitable space. And this one, this orange is the house, and then gray is all the impervious area, including a swimming pool and a small spa. The orange is what was existing before. This was yellow, but when it got scanned, it somehow changed to orange. This is the salt marshes. So when I look, that's why I calculated the areas the way that I did. You approved that project. I used the same methods of calculating the square footage. So during the hearing, I did submit various documentation. I resubmitted them in words, and so that if you had any questions concerning the 12 issues that I discussed at the hearing, I'm here to answer any questions you have. I submitted a foundation plan. I submitted a letter from the building commissioner, Eladio Gore, saying that the breakaway panels that were shown on the plan meet the definition or would be allowed under the building code. I gave you a copy of the state law that says any town can supplement the building code if they ask for it. I gave you some narrative about breakaway panels and elevated structures, velocity zones. I gave you maps. I gave the calculations of the areas. I gave you I went through the calculations again. I gave you a cross-section. I gave you the footprint areas. We talked quickly about the lawn areas and the site photographs. And the final thing I forgot to mention was we did map that wetland across the street, and I have shown the resource area A and B for that. That wetland didn't affect the application that's before you.
Okay, you have any questions?
No, I think Mr. McGrath has provided all the information that the board
That people
requested
asked?
at the last hearing, yes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Courtney?
I'll move to close the hearing.
Well, I have some questions.
That's all right. I put a motion on the
I'll
table.
second it.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm actually going to submit something to the file. Down the street, when I run, I noticed an alternative for breakaway, for areas with houses on piling. And so, on Old Dock Road, you want to look at it?
Yes.
So I'm just going to submit this so we can discuss it in deliberation, since this is an issue that we talk about. And also, can you tell me what kind of insulation is going to be used?
You have to come up and speak to me.
And you have to tell us who you are again.
Sally Weston, I'm
Right,
the architect
thanks.
working on the project, but it would be like a blown-in insulation that becomes rigid, so it would stand up to water. You know, it wouldn't be something like bad insulation that could get wet and, cause mildew or mold.
Is it Icynene?
Yes, yes, yeah.
It'd
Yes,
be a
very
closed-
good.
closed cell?
Yes.
If you want me to explain that a little bit more?
Sure.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ralph Cataldo, for the record, Cataldo Custom Builders here in East Falmouth.
We're proposing to use a closed cell insulation, which is sprayed in most situations in the walls and the ceilings and the floors. And it's really, it's pretty rigid stuff. It doesn't allow any moisture and vapor whatsoever. And that is really critical when it comes to, at the underside of a house. I mean, I've stood after Hurricane Bob, on floors, and I've seen everything, happen to these poor homeowners when we didn't protect and install a moisture barrier. And this stuff is the best product, in my opinion, on the market. I've researched a ton of them. I just came back from the International Builders Show. I spoke to 7 different insulation manufacturers. And for our climate zone, this is definitely the best product for this application, and that's why we're proposing it.
Okay, good. Thanks. May I have that back, Mike? And
The photographs show, there's one page with 3 photographs that show open pile structure. The second one seems to show a vertical wall, and then the 5th picture is an advertisement for an architect. So,
this,
yeah, no, the other one.
this is open piles.
Yeah, but what's the second page? Has pictures 4 and 5.
Just what it looks like underneath.
Could you please share those?
Yeah, oh, sure.
Thank you.
And this is, because this is something that we've been, talking and deliberating about also. Yeah, you didn't do soils in the bamboo area.
No, he said, the wetland scientist said that
This is
that when he
Jeff?
when he tried to dig through it, the root mass was significant. He couldn't dig through it. He also said he didn't think it mattered in the long run if it varied a little bit. The plants that that we are removing the bamboo on the lot, and we're replacing them with plants that will live in that area.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the table? Susan? Any other questions? Any more questions from the audience or comments? Okay, we'll take the vote. All in favor of closing this hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Give you guys 2 minutes to move out, and if you want to discuss things, please go far enough away so we don't hear you. Okay, the next continued request for hearing under a notice of intent is Sebastiano and Susan Santos Stefano, 3 Black Beach Hills Road, West Falmouth, for permission to construct a 432-square-foot deck, remove an existing oil tank, install an underground propane tank, resurface the driveway, vista prune, remove vines and invasive plant species, install native trees, shrub, vegetation, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, your quorum on this is Ed, Tom, yourself, Mike, and Ted. And the applicant was supposed to provide you a sod spec and the manufacturer, which was done. You wanted him to propane location, Mike, and that was done. Ed, you wanted them to look at the mitigation area on the west side of the property, and that was also done. So the applicant has provided all the information that you requested at the last hearing.
Okay.
And after reviewing all the information, I don't have any other comments that
Okay.
I didn't already make at the last hearing.
Thank you. Yes, do you have any comments?
Good evening, Zach Basinski, Bracken Engineering.
Good evening.
Can you answer any questions you have?
Okay, if anyone has any questions, now's your chance. If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion.
Close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second.
What kind of irrigation do you have on this?
Just temporary irrigation, 2 years drip irrigation for the mitigation plantings, but there's no permanent irrigation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, motion on the table, did you get it?
I second.
Motion on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
So great. Angela and Dennis Martinez, 140 Saconaset Road, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family 5-bedroom house with attached garage, deck with stairs, porches, walkways, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, patio retaining wall, spa, dry wells, utilities, AC units, to remove trees and install native trees and shrubs, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we were waiting for a letter from Natural Heritage, which came in. The board wanted a cross-section on the proposed retaining wall, and Courtney had asked that the 12-inch oak...
2 trees be saved.
Yeah, a couple of trees be saved by the proposed deck, and you wanted them to look at the plant species. All of that information has come in, I've reviewed it all. I don't have any additional comments or significant concerns that haven't already been raised.
Okay. Hello, Jeff?
Yes, how you doing? I'm Jeff Ryder
Good.
with BSS. Also,
Jeff,
with me
I
tonight
have a thought. I'm
is...
sorry,
Yep.
I just want to give them the floor.
Oh,
Courtney, Tom, Betsy, Arthur, Ted, and Mike.
Sorry about that, Jeff.
is that the forum?
That's it.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm Jeff Ryder, and with me tonight is Teresa Sprague. Yeah. And Teresa will talk a little bit about the mitigation plan that's proposed. But I think the main issue for the continuance was we didn't have the letter from Division of Fisheries and Wildlife.
Which you now have.
We do.
Oh,
we do.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, so it basically sums it up and says it's not going to be a take, a prohibited take, is the term they use.
Right.
Anyway, the next item was, I think it was Courtney that asked us to save the trees to the south of the house here.
Right, the ones that are 20 feet away from the porch.
The ones that are more away from the house are the better species, so we decided to keep the 12-inch oak and 8-inch spruce, the ones close to the house.
Yep.
We asked those to go. So, in the calculations, even though we reduced the tree cutting, we kept the same number of plantings, and Teresa spaced them out nicely instead of my little stiff design that I had the last time around. You asked for a retaining wall. You should have one in your packet. It looks kind of like this one here. Yeah. What we did is we tiered the wall from this first section. We brought it back to the house, then started the next section lower by 2 feet. So we have no wall over 4 feet. And the cross section there, it's a concrete wall faced with stone. The next one was, well, we talked about the calculations. And I just added a note that references the new planting plan. And again, it's here in green on my plan, but I'm going to have Teresa talk a little bit about that mitigation.
Good evening, Teresa Sprague, Blue Flags Design.
Good evening, Teresa.
The mitigation plan in a nutshell is fairly simple. We're proposing to plant 10 Mrs. Sylvatica within the A zone. I think one is just outside of the A zone, and 18 shrubs, a mix of high bush blueberry, Virginia rose, winterberry holly, inkberry holly. I think the one major difference is the area that is in gray, which is the planting area. I'm proposing that we soil condition that area and plant it with a mix of native warm and cool season grasses, as well as plug it with Pennsylvania sedge. There's a lot of invasive species in the area on the other side of the stone wall, and the area, I think, has been cut in the project area that we're proposing, so I'm not able to tell what's exactly underneath there right now, but I am concerned that there's probably a lot of raspberry brambles, things like that, that would quickly overwhelm the plantings that we were proposing to put in. So short of proposing a full-blown invasive species management that the client was not showing interest in doing at this time, I would just propose to do some soil conditioning, at least get some of that root material out, and then seed it with purple lovegrass, little blue stem, some creeping red fescue, just to get some quick germination, cool season grasses, as well as some big blue stem and some sweet goldenrod, purple coneflower, asters, things like that. And it would have, and then would not be mown underneath there. So that as soon as these plantings go in, they'll no longer be able to mow that area. So I'd like to just try and get ground cover established that's appropriate for the plantings underneath. I think what they'll probably find in the future is that they may have some invasive species popping up in there. And at that time, I would recommend to them that they very selectively treat those species, and if we needed to come back at that time with an invasive plant management plan, we could do that.
Okay, thanks. And any questions? Ted? One.
No.
Okay, Mike? Ed? Arthur? All right, I'll entertain a motion then,
Motion to close and take it under advisement.
and I'll take a second.
Second.
Okay, if there are no more questions here, and it's just the applicant's representatives in the audience, I'll call for the motion. All in favor of closing this hearing and taking it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Request to amend the existing order of conditions. P&B Realty, 32. Did we continue this?
We continued it.
Aha.
May 9th.
May 9th. I thought this looked familiar. Vote orders of conditions. Atlantic Oysters LLC and Denise Kelly, 158 Seapit Road, Wacoit. This was to put in a couple of additional upwellers.
It was to put in the 3 additional upwellers. It's within the scope of the original project, which was to maintain the property
Right.
as a business, an aquaculture business.
Right.
There's no navigation issue with the location of the 3 upwellers, and you've already proved that I don't see the additional ones being that much of a concern to you.
Okay.
Quorum?
Oh, on the,
We have this last week,
Yes.
so Ed,
No, you
Tom?
didn't hear it last week.
2 weeks ago. We
Last
didn't
week
meet
was
last week.
town meeting.
2 weeks ago. Ed, Tom, me, Mike, Ted.
Ed, Tom, Betsy, Mike,
So may I have a motion?
Motion to accept as discussed.
May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept this and Jen will write any conditions that need to be done. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
One quick thing, Madam Chairman, there's not going to be any more conditions, yes, I know, than you already have on the original project.
Sounds
Oh,
awesome.
on this, I thought there was other business.
Actually, there is.
He didn't see my presentation about other business.
No, I didn't. Yes, Tom?
I just wanted to ask, 194 Edgewater
It's
one-
next week.
It's the 19th.
We got an
Okay,
email
and-
that said it was the next week.
and 94 Oyster Pond?
You heard that was Mr. Talbot's
I
presentation?
just heard that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
cross
it's
that off.
okay.
And then the other little informational thing, I've been stopping by the water treatment facility. I've been there 3 times at different times of the day, first in the morning to see if they were reviewing the pumping and such. I am now a familiar face and known by name. The diverter at full rate, what they estimated to be full rate, they went alongside the pond, and they teed it off, and it's deferred left and right, and at full flow, at the time that I was there, between the hay bales that were there and the rate of flow, leaves were barely moving. There was some retention, half the size of this room, at the lowest portion of the depressions. So they've had no mechanical issues with any of the piping or any events that would cause great concern. So I think that's, I'm looking forward to the results of what they're processing, but it has been going okay.
Yeah, I've gone by a couple of times also.
I went by there when it first went online.
Yeah.
They don't know me by name, they think I'm highly suspicious.
They don't know me by name, they know my dogs.
But they have names for everybody.
That's true.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
No, I didn't make it, I'm entertaining it. No, I had a so moved.
That's what I
I'll
said.
second it.
1 first and 7 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.